Hello everyone and welcome to the channel. This is Wayne and thank you for tuning in to T-Freak Adventures. A little bit different than what my videos normally are like. I'm coming to you in this video from my front porch. And normally I'm on the back of my motorcycle, affectionately called Saki Sue, somewhere out in the woods somewhere. But this video is a little bit different, and some things have happened, and I just wanted to get on and just kind of share with you what things have happened and how things have been, and what the future looks like, and maybe even what the future of the channel is going to look like going forward. If any of you have followed the channel for a little while, you know that I've had a Kawasaki Versys X 300 ABS, again, affectionately called Saki Sue, and I loved that bike, and we have had a ton of fun together, and some of my best times have been on the back of that bike. But unfortunately, and you know this if you've tuned in, especially to the last two episodes and watched them all the way to the end, but Saki Sue is no more. And I'm going to tell you a little bit of that story and kind of update you on how I'm doing, and then talk about what the next plan is. So I bought Saki Sue back in September of 2024. And I got a great deal on that bike, and I immediately began my adventure bike riding videos not long after that. And over the course of a year, I was constantly upgrading the bike to make it more off-road capable, and almost had Saki Sue like completely dialed in to the way I wanted the bike to be, when a little bit of a tragedy occurred. So in my last video, you saw me replacing the shift shaft that I broke up on Rattlesnake Gap, and I fixed that, and man, the bike was running better than ever. And about a week later, I was going to a county board meeting. It was about 5 miles from home, August 18th, in the middle of the hottest part of the summer here in East Tennessee. Temperatures had been in the upper 90s for a while. I mean, it was sweltering. If you guys have watched my videos, you know I always ride with gear. Every video you've ever seen on my channel, I have a helmet on. I have a riding jacket with body armor built into it, and I have riding pants with body armor built into them, and I have riding boots. But on this day, for some stupid reason, I guess maybe because it was so hot outside and I didn't want to put the jacket on, and because I was only going 5 miles up the road, I decided not to wear my riding jacket. So I had the boots on, I had on some blue jeans, and I had on a short sleeve button up like Columbia style shirt, one of those really thin shirts. I did wear my helmet, and I had my gloves on. So anyway, I went to the county board meeting, and it had been super hot when I got there. But when I got ready to leave, the temperature had cooled down a lot, and it was the sun was just starting to get really low in the sky, and it was feeling pretty good outside. So I decided to take a little bit of a ride on my way home and kind of take the scenic route, if you will. There's a 4-lane highway that runs near where I live, and I have to take a portion of it to get home. But on this night, I decided to go all the way to the county line on that 4-lane highway and then come back. It's a nice, wide 4-lane highway, huge shoulders, lots of visibility, really safe place to ride, not much traffic. So I got all the way to county line, turned around and was coming back, and I had planned to ride all the way back to where I normally would get off of that highway to go home. But there's a little kind of a back road that attaches to that 4-lane highway that would take me home as well. And it's a pretty good maintained highway, and it's curvy. And it's one of those roads that you just feel like you can flow on, if you know what I mean. Those of you who ride bikes, you know what I'm talking about. You just feel like you're flowing when you're on that road. And by this time, it was like right at dark, just to the point where the headlights were really kind of starting to throw some light out there. And so I got to that point where I was going to turn off to go down that road. And I'm a believer. I believe in Jesus, and I have a relationship with him. I'm a Christian. Most of you probably have picked up on that if you've watched my channel. And a lot of times when I'm riding, I do a lot of praying and a lot of reflecting and things like that. And it was no different this night. I was just kind of in the zone, kind of praying and you know, just doing my thing. And when I got to this point where I was going to turn off, I like literally, like, not like the audible voice of God speaking from heaven or anything, but that still small voice that a lot of us here, if you're a Christian, you've heard it before, kind of in your heart and in your mind, that voice that you know is not your own voice, because often it's telling you to do things that you don't want to do, or not do things that you really do want to do. And this was one of those times. That voice just said, "Hey, Wayne, you need to just stay on the 4-lane and get off where you normally would get off." And I actually had kind of like a little argument in my head with what I believe was the Spirit of God trying to keep me from getting myself into a pickle. But anyway, I didn't listen, and I pulled off on the road that I wanted to take anyway. And I went about a quarter mile, and there's a long sweeping left turn. It's like a 90-degree turn. There's an embankment on the left side, and the forest, the woods grow right up to the road on the left side at the top of that embankment. And on the right side is a hayfield. So you can see out into the hayfield, but you cannot see around the corner because that embankment comes right up kind of to the edge of the road and blocks your view of the exit of the turn as you're coming into the turn. So I came into that turn. I was doing, I don't know, 45, 50 miles an hour. The speed limit on the road was 50, but I wasn't going that fast, probably about 45. And all of a sudden, there's this blur in my peripheral vision. And next thing you know, there's this huge deer literally in front of my bike. Like, it wasn't there, and then it was there. Like, I had no time to react. Like, you have all these plans about what you'll do if you see something like that. Or I'm going to low side the bike, or, you know, I'm going to veer and kind of go around it, you know, that evasive maneuvering, right? All of these things that you practice. And I literally had no time to do any of that. The only thing I had time to do was to kind of push myself back on the seat, because I just knew I was fixing to hit this thing broadside, and I didn't want to go over the handlebars. So I pushed myself back on the seat, and I hit the deer just square right in the middle of its body. I'm not sure what happened next. That's all kind of a blur. The next thing I remember was sliding down the road on my belly, basically, on my elbows and knees for the most part. and I could feel the heat coming through my pants from the asphalt on my knees and the heat in my elbows. And I actually remember looking back and seeing the bike sliding on its side down the road behind me. And when I finally came to a stop, I crawled over to the right side of the road on my hands and knees. And then I couldn't breathe. And I thought it was because I had my helmet on. So I got my helmet off and kind of just threw it on the side of the road, took my gloves off, and I still really couldn't breathe. It was like I was just kind of gasping for breath. But I looked up, and here was a car coming around the corner from the same direction I had just come, and there's my bike laying in the middle of the road. So I was really afraid that that car was going to hit my bike, and then they were going to have a wreck. So I actually stood up, I remember, and like hobbled towards them, waving them down with my right hand, because my left arm, I really couldn't move. And I just felt like my whole left side was kind of, I don't know, the left side wasn't working very well from the waist up. But anyway, I waved him down, and the lady was like, "Oh my goodness, what happened?" And I told her I'd hit a deer, and she says, "I'll call 911." And so anyway, I walked back to my bike, because at that point I remembered that my phone was still in the phone cradle, and I needed to call 911, or I needed to try to call my wife or something. Well, when I got back to the bike, my phone was in this like emergency mode. I have an iPhone, and let me tell you, if you're a biker, whether it's a motorcycle, or if you are even like a mountain biker or a road biker or something like that, I highly encourage you to set this up on your phone. I don't even remember when I did it, but at some point I went into the settings, and there is a setting, it's like a crash detection or emergency. I think it's under the emergency settings, and you can turn on crash detection. And what it'll do is, if it detects that you're in a wreck of any sort, it will actually call 911 on your behalf, and also send a text message to all of the people in your emergency contact list, let them know you've been in an accident, give them the GPS coordinates and a map to get to you. And so that's what my phone had done. And so I was trying to get it out of that emergency mode so I could call my wife, and I couldn't. By this time, the adrenaline had worn off. I was hurting really badly, gasping for breath. I wasn't thinking clearly, and I just couldn't figure out how to get it out of that mode. And in the midst of that, my wife called me, because she had gotten this message, and she said, "I just got a message that you were that you had an accident." And all I could say was, "Yes, I need you." And she said, "I'm on my way." So at that point, I knew I had contacted enough people that they could call 911. Unbeknownst to me, this is what I found out later, my wife got off the phone with me and immediately called 911. And the dispatcher said to her, and this is how I know that my phone did what it did, said, "Is your husband's number, blah, blah, blah?" And she said, "Yes." And the dispatcher said, "His phone has already called us and told us he was in an accident, and we already have an ambulance en route." That just blows my mind. So anyway, I crawled back over to where my helmet and stuff like that was, and I just laid down on the asphalt at this point, because now I'm just like, I'm in a ton of pain. My whole left side's kind of throbbing. I've got super bad road rash, and I'm bleeding kind of all over. And I just kind of laid there waiting for the ambulance to get there. And I did a fair amount of praying as I laid there, kind of made my peace with God, and was just like, "Look, if you'd let me stay on earth for my family, I'd appreciate that very much. But if it's my time to go, I'm ready to go." And I will say that from that point forward, once I spent that little bit of time praying and just talking to the Lord, from that point forward, I had complete peace over everything that happened from that point forward. I had a lot of pain, but I also had complete peace. And it's hard to explain that unless you're a believer, and then you understand what I'm talking about. Anyway, my wife shows up at the scene about the same time that the ambulance shows up. The EMTs put a neck brace on me, and that was excruciating because what I didn't know then, but I should have known, is I had a lot of broken ribs and pretty bad bruising on the left side of my body and a collapsed lung. And so when they put that neck brace on me, it just kind of pushed everything down. And oh my goodness, that hurt. And then they put me on a backboard, and that was painful. But I do have to give credit to the EMTs. I mean, they got there quick, and they were doing the best that they could for me. I think they started an intravenous line. Of course, they were checking all my vitals and everything. And I know the EMT was over talking to my wife. By this time, police had showed up, and they were talking to my wife. And then the EMT came back over to me and said, "Hey, look, we don't feel like we need to transport you to the local hospital because they're not equipped to handle a trauma case like yours. And so we've called in a helicopter, and we're going to airlift you to the University of Tennessee Trauma Unit over in Knoxville." And he was like, "Is that okay with you?" And of course, at this point, I'm like, I don't care what you do. Just like get me somewhere and give me some pain meds. Cause I mean, I was hurting. They loaded me in the ambulance, and of course there was nowhere there for a helicopter to land. So they had to take me to a school, which was a couple of miles up the road. And the helicopter actually landed in the baseball field. And man, on that ride from the accident site to that school, I felt every bump. I felt every curve. I felt like I was coming off of that backboard. My left side, like every movement that I made was just excruciating. It felt like bones grinding against bones in my chest. And anyway, got me to the school, took me out to the helicopter, loaded me in the helicopter, took off. I remember one of the EMTs in the helicopter, there were two of them back there with me, one on each side, and they're like working, like constantly working. I don't know what all they're doing, but they were doing all kinds of stuff. And I remember one of them telling me, "I'm going to give you some fentanyl for your pain." And I thought, fentanyl? Are you kidding me? Like, isn't that stuff bad? It must have knocked me out a little bit because once we took off, I don't remember much of the helicopter ride after that, but I do remember kind of coming to just as they were circling the hospital to land. And of course they were like, "All right, there's going to be a little bump when we land." And there was a little bump, and it hurt. And then next thing I know, they were dragging me out the back end of that helicopter onto another gurney and rolling me into the hospital. And I felt every little crack in the ground. I remember they took me into the ER, and once they got me into the ER, they had to get me off of the backboard and onto like a bed in the ER. And so the way they did that is they put a sheet under me, and then everybody just picked up on the sheet, kind of like it was a hammock, and drug me from the gurney that I had come in on to the hospital bed there in the ER. And that was, again, I think the most painful things that I experienced during my whole through the whole ordeal, the most painful experiences were the times that they had to move me from one bed to another and used that method to do it. It was just, I don't know, it just felt like bones were just grinding against one another every time that happened. But they got me onto the hospital bed, and then all I remember is there was such a flurry of activity. It literally felt like there were probably 15 people in the room because there were so many voices, so many hands, so many faces coming in and out of my peripheral vision, so many questions being asked of me. Can you feel your legs? Does it hurt here? Do you remember what happened? Did you hit your head? I mean, just all this stuff. I remember one guy saying, "Does your hip hurt?" And I mean, my whole left side hurt. And so, I didn't think much about my hip, but I do remember now that I was limping really badly whenever I was going back to that car. I was kind of almost dragging my left leg a little bit. And next thing I know, like somebody was on top of me, like pushing their hands into my pelvis, like they're trying to push through me is what it felt like. It was like they put every bit of their weight on it. So I don't know if maybe my left hip was dislocated or not. Maybe they were popping it back in. I do know that my left hip's had a massive hematoma on it. And it still does. Even 2 months later, I still have some swelling on my left hip. But I do have full function of it, so that's something I'll get over it. So anyway, next thing you know, they got scissors. Scissors in like 4 or 5 different hands, and they're cutting my clothes off of me. And next thing you know, man, I'm laying there naked as a jaybird. But I'm hurting so bad that I don't care. And then I must have passed out again. I think they gave me some more pain meds. And the next time that I came to or woke up, they had me in the CT machine. I was told later that they did the golden standard of CT diagnostics on me. They literally, it's like they 3D mapped my whole entire body. And through that, they discovered that I had on my left side 8 broken ribs that were broken in 14 different places. And I had a hydropneumothorax, which if you don't know what that is, it's basically a punctured lung where fluid enters into the chest cavity. Because of the hydropneumothorax, I had a partially deflated left lung. So yeah, that was a lot of trauma. And I don't know if you can see it, but even now, like this is one of the ribs. I don't know if you can see that knot right there, but basically this was the number 1 rib, and it broke right here, and the bottom part or the back part of the rib rode up over this part of the rib that connects to my sternum, and then it has just like set that way. So I didn't know this, but I found this out, that ribs 1 through 4, they don't do anything about those if you break them because they're so close to your heart and the nerves that control your heart, that they're afraid if they mess with them, it could kill you. I believe it was ribs 1 through 8 were all broken, and some of them were broken in 2 and 3 places. So that was pretty serious. Once they figured out everything that was going on with me, they moved me into the trauma ICU. So that was about, like I said, I woke up during the CT, and then I kind of went back out again. I woke up in the ER after they had kind of got me stabilized. And I remember being awake in the ER for a little while because my wife was there and some friends from church were there. And then they finally moved me to a room about 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock in the morning, and the room being in the trauma ICU. And so when they took me into the trauma ICU, again, they did the whole thing with the sheet moving from one bed to the other. And I, of course, screamed because it hurt. And then they informed me that everybody that comes into the trauma ICU has to be completely washed down to make sure there's no chance of, contamination or, ending up with some kind of infection. So they had 4 nurses in there, and every one of them took a limb and started scrubbing. And so they scrubbed me down. Again, I was naked as a jaybird. Then they had to scrub my back side. So to do that, they had to roll me over on the good side where nothing was broken. But that was so painful. I couldn't breathe. I was gasping for air. I was just hurting. But they worked quickly, and they got me cleaned up and dressed all my wounds, and gave me some really good pain meds at that point that knocked me out pretty much for the rest of the night. And that's basically the story. I was in the trauma ICU for 5 days. After 5 days in the trauma ICU, and then I think I spent 1 day in a step down unit, and then I was able to come home. So I don't have any photos of the accident, of course. I do have a couple photos of me in the hospital. And you are probably wondering how my bike fared. Here are some photos of the aftermath in regards to Saki Sue. I was really hoping that the bike would be salvageable and that I could repair the bike and keep it, but the insurance company pretty much insisted on totaling the bike, and before I let them do that, I actually snuck out of the house, and I don't even think my wife knows this, but I snuck out of the house and I rode the bike around the neighborhood, even with broken ribs and everything. That's insane, but I did it because I just needed to know for myself what shape the bike was in. And after that ride, there was no doubt in my mind the bike was not right. It was tweaked. The triple tree wasn't right up front, so the steering was all jacked up. The bike didn't feel like it was sitting right. So I don't know if something was up with the frame or not, but and of course you saw in the photos that there were some things that were broken, and then I just was really worried that there might be some micro cracks, like in welds or maybe even in the case, the crankcase or some other parts of the engine or something like that. So, like, for a solid week, I agonized over, do I keep the bike or do I let them take it? And in the end, I finally decided to let them take it, mainly because I didn't want to keep the bike and then a month down the road, things start going wrong with the bike, and then me start second guessing myself about whether it was the right thing to do to keep it. So they gave me a really good payout on the bike, paid it off, and then gave me a good amount of money left that I could use as a really good down payment on a new bike. And so that's what I took. And so Saki Sue is gone. And here is a photo of her leaving on the back of a rollback truck. So yeah, that was a sad day. So, oh, and here's some photos of my weeks of recovery. Because for a solid week after I got home, I hardly moved out of the recliner. And so now I am, oh, it happened on August 18th. I am 2.5 months out. The ribs have pretty much healed at this point. I have one spot that's still really, really tender, but I am getting there. And let me say this. If you were somebody who made a comment or liked a post or said, hey, we're praying for you or thinking about you or any kind of encouraging word whatsoever, I totally appreciate it. So what are my plans? Where are we going from here? Well, okay, so with the Versys X300, it was a great bike for me to start my adventure riding on. But there towards the end, I really felt like I had kind of outgrown the Versys and that it wasn't as trail capable as I wanted it to be. In fact, some of the problems that I had in some of my later videos were specifically because I was asking more from the bike than what it was really intended to be used for. Increasingly, I was using it more for like rugged trails. I mean, go back and watch the Rocky Top video, Rattlesnake Gap, um, even Hall's Top. There were a couple places where I just felt like it's a great bike and I loved it, but on some of the trails, it felt like there were a couple times it was out of its depth. So then my big question was, what do I do? And I wanted to stick with Kawasaki. And so it seemed like the only logical thing to do was to go up to the KLR 650. And I know a lot of people swear by the KLR 650. They're the tractors of off-road bikes. Like they're virtually indestructible. You can find tons of aftermarket parts fairly cheaply for them. My only problem is it's a single cylinder bike. It's carbureted instead of fuel injected. And it weighs about 80 pounds heavier than the Versys. And the electronics on it are not nearly as nice. The instrument panel is pretty archaic. And I just wanted more. And so while I was trying to figure out what do I do, and I almost pulled the trigger on a KLR 650 a couple of different times, when a friend of mine who is a Kawasaki dealer told me, he said, "Hey, what about this new KLE 500 that Kawasaki is about to put out? Because we're only, about a month away from the unveiling of the KLE 500." And so I was like, okay, so this KLE 500 is rally inspired. It's more off-road. It's more built for the off-road than even I think the KLR 650 is, because it's going to be lighter. It's got fuel injection. It's a parallel twin like my Versys was. It's a 451 cc motor, I think, or 449 cc. I can't remember. They're calling it a 500. So it's going to have more power than my 300. Maybe not as much power as a 650. I'm not sure. From the specs I've seen, it says it actually has more horsepower than the 650, but I'm not sure about the torque. Anyway, it's definitely going to be lighter than the KLR 650. So yeah, I think that's what I'm going with, a KLE 500. And at this point, I'm just waiting for them to hit the showroom. They should be able to order them soon. And so then it's just a matter of when will they be in stock. And I will have one of the first ones that shows up in the store. Already kind of have the KLE 500 SE model picked out, and that's what I'm going to go for. So in the future, you will see me on a KLE 500, I think. Anyway, in the meantime, while I'm waiting for that bike to become available, I'm not going to stop making content. In fact, I've already got another video coming. And instead of a motorcycle video, what I'm doing in the meantime is I am doing some trips to some places in our Kawasaki Teryx 4 SE side-by-side. Really, really cool side-by-side. And I'll have my son along with me, or sons along with me, maybe even some family friends along with me on some of those trips. But we're going to do some exploring, and I'll put those in the VersysCam, on the VersysCam section of the channel, and we'll just keep these videos going. So just know you're going to see some videos of me in the side-by-side doing some crazy stuff in the side-by-side, going to some great places, but that's only temporary until I get the new bike. And then I'll go back to creating my normal content, and I may start a whole nother series or another playlist on this channel for more of the side-by-side related content. Anyway, so that catches you up to speed on where I've been, everything that happened, where I'm at now. Doing pretty good, other than just trying to get my strength back, and where I'm going to be headed. So hopefully you'll keep tuning in. I appreciate everybody who watches these videos. I appreciate every like. I appreciate every subscription to the channel. You guys don't know how much I appreciate that. And I truly appreciate all of your comments, especially the good ones, the encouraging ones. And thank you guys for being with me on this journey. I thoroughly loved learning to do this adventure bike riding, and I'm ready to take it kind of to the next level with a bike that I feel like is more adept at the kind of riding I want to do. I guess that's really all I got for you. So thanks for tuning in. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them in the comment. Any questions about, my ordeal? Some of you may wonder what happened to the deer. As far as I know, the deer jumped up and ran away because nobody was able to find the deer. Anyway, again, thanks for tuning in. Ask any questions. I'll be happy to answer them. If you've had a similar ordeal, tell me and tell everybody else about it in the comments. If you've got any thoughts on the KLE 500, feel free to put those down there as well. Whatever. I'd love to hear from you. But thanks for tuning in. Again, don't forget to like and subscribe. And in the meantime, go out there and have your own adventure. Life is short. Enjoy it. And I'll see you on the next one. Bye.